So, if you are deciding whether or not to taper your medications, definitely watch my video from earlier about the why and the how of medication tapering. And then also stay tuned for this one too, because I would love to share with you some resources and some just concepts and supports for you as you enter into that decision making process and make preparations. So this is kind of like the contemplative stage where you've been assessing about making this decision and seeing if you have what it takes. And if you have your reasons, you got to have your why, your how. And this is a little bit more of the nitty gritty of the how and getting yourself established for that tapering. So please stay tuned. I'm so glad you're here. If you'd like to meet with me to talk with me about tapering or withdrawal or anything that you're going through, my link is in the video description. I would love to meet with you. But yeah, here today, I'm just going to share some information about tapering and your support through the process. So first of all, it is very important that you have support. And so that's something you want to gather at the beginning. What you're going to need is people who believe you about tapering and medication withdrawal. You're going to need people in your immediate life, in your circles, who can support you through the process, whether it's family members or friends. But just assess, who do you have around you in your personal life who cares and who is willing to support you and understand, either through learning and educating themselves, or maybe they've been through it, or maybe they just, like, you shared with them some of the things you learn and they get it. They're believing you and they're just willing to be a cheerleader for you through the process. Now, it doesn't mean you have a perfect support system, but it's important that you have some people who are understanding, who are supportive, who know who you are, and can be encouraging to you through this process. And that can vary, like for different people, that can really vary, whether that's someone across the country that they can call on the phone, like a special aunt, or whether it's like a neighbor who's been through it, or maybe it's like, your mom, or maybe it's a sibling. But kind of assess, like, what are your supportive relationships of when you're having a really hard time, of people you can trust, who are truly kind and understanding, and have your back. And so having a couple people like that, who you tell them about withdrawal, you tell them about what it is to get through medication withdrawal, and then you kind of have your support system set already, or at least started. I mean, it's all an ongoing process as you go through the healing, but it's good to have something to start with for support, and for especially the critical relationships around you, like the people you live with and are closest to, that they believe you and are at least in some way understanding and can be supportive. So I think that's really important at the beginning, is kind of that like support system, and establishing that. Now, if you don't have that and you're already tapering, oh, it is not hopeless. Let me tell you, this is what I did. I ended up it was so bad. I was thick in the withdrawal. My taper was terrible. I was poorly, totally poorly managed, for a bunch of reasons, but I ended up literally going through my phone and being like, who do I know who's a supportive person who would understand, or at least encourage me through this? And people went into two buckets for a while for me, where it was like, either they can understand this and be supportive, or they can't. And so I sorted everybody into two buckets for a while because it was so severe. And I talked to the people who were supportive about what was going on. And then the other people, I just didn't tell them about it. And so that was how I managed without having established a support system at the beginning. the benefit you have is that you're at the beginning of the process and you're getting a clue about how trying it can be to go through this. And so you can kind of establish some of your support system beforehand. But if you're finding yourself in a place, even as you go through this, where you're like, this is just not enough support, you can always reach out and find more support while you're even going through this, even when you're in a hard time. And so, like, for instance, for me, I had a couple of friends who they were just willing to jump on a call with me and just encourage me through it. Some of them, like, understood some about withdrawal, some, like, did not understand it at all, that they were just willing to be people who encouraged me through it and would, like, watch a video for me, like, to be educated, to, like, kind of know what was going on. So I just encourage you that letting people in on what you're going through, I know is not cultural, like, not something we necessarily, like, practice on a regular basis. Like, let me just advertise all of these embarrassing things. Um, and so there can be a lot of, like, internal hindrances to, like, wanting to invite other people into what we're experiencing. But I really encourage you to break through that and to find your safe spaces, because it can make such a huge difference to have support from other people through this process. To know that, like, if the bottom is falling out, you have someone you can call who will help ground you and will help encourage you through this. And just to know you're not alone and it isn't all on your shoulders. Because honestly, this is not your fault that you have to go through this. You were medicated based on professional recommendations and advice, and that was how you were guided to best care for yourself. And you've gotten into a situation where you're wanting to taper and get off of that dependency, and that takes support because it's hard. It is not easy. And so I noticed that the people who have a support system, it makes an enormous difference in their healing process. And so don't resist. Please don't resist reaching out to see who that could be for you. Even if it's really different for you to do that, even if that's, like, really out of the ordinary to call someone and be like, I am struggling, help me with my thoughts. Like, I just encourage you to try and reach out and find that kind of support. And next step, you have your support of people who know you, or at least, like, who are in your personal life, who can kind of understand what's going on and be patient with you. You may find yourself needing support of people who've been through it. So this is where I would encourage you to come to tapering groups and support call groups and find withdrawal buddies. Now, this varies for people based on, like, how severe it is for you, and based on where you're at in the process. It may be that coming to a call once a month is totally sufficient, because then you're like, okay, I'm not alone, I'm not crazy, I'm not the only person going through this. Okay, I got some questions answered that I needed answered, and that really, like, can really buoy you through a hard process. Or you may be like, I need to do this weekly, or I need somebody I can call who's going through this. So wherever you're at in that spectrum, definitely try a group if you're needing more support, because it can give you a chance to ask some questions about withdrawal, to get support from someone who's been through it, the coach. So I host one, and also Angie Peacock hosts a group, and there may be others, but I definitely encourage you to be part of a group if you're in need of more support. So support is a huge part of getting through a hard time. I mean, think of it as like any kind of hard time you have in your life. When people go through a medical injury or a car accident, or, you know, having a child or any kind of life adjustment thing, support can make such a huge difference in our healing process. And so I just encourage you to assess and kind of get your footing for what your support system can be. All right, next step, coping strategies. I also encourage you to learn coping strategies for how to deal with distress, because some of what happens in tapering is that when you taper, you may feel feelings of distress that you have not ever experienced before, or not to that degree before. And it doesn't mean they're forever. It doesn't mean even that they're super long. Sometimes the duration is short, but you may have symptoms like emotional symptoms or mental symptoms of feeling really strange, really uncomfortable, really upset and or angry or emotional, like neuro emotions, or a lot of anxiety and fear or sudden feelings of depression and anhedonia. Like sometimes those can come in like a wave where it's just like suddenly you're just having this symptom and you don't understand why and you don't know how long it's going to last. And so that where coping strategies can really help you ride through that, because just because you're having the symptom doesn't mean it's going to last. A lot of this process is your body coming back to manage and regulate itself. And so in the process, there can be some rocky waves in there and some discomfort. And so think through like what are your coping strategies for when you're upset? And you can even like those you can even develop and grow as you're going through the process, but definitely spend some time thinking beforehand about what your coping strategies are and and what you could even add to that to help you feel more calmed, more grounded, or just even to ride out the discomfort while it's happening. I have a lot of resources on coping strategies and support, so of course you can use those. But there's a lot of other places that have it too. So it can be very simple things. It can be things like going on a walk, calling somebody, listening to music, journaling, writing down positive things, reminding yourself of your reasons why you're going through this, reminding yourself of the good things of who you are and your purpose. And so there's lots of different coping strategies, but I just encourage you to think through what are my coping strategies for when I'm really upset, and what else can I add to that toolbox to be able to have some ways of getting through some real discomfort and maybe even pain, because at times tapering can be painful for people. Okay, and then let's see, I'm looking at my list. Also, I think it can help to think through lifestyle and and any kind of adjustments you can make in your lifestyle while you're going through the tapering process. Sometimes people find that they need to work less, or they need to rest more. So kind of think through like what are your margins? What things can you drop if you need to? Um, is there a way you can um, plan out to reduce your schedule if you need to during a hard tapering week? What are your support systems for that or your strategies for that? Some people find that it's harder to concentrate, so um, harder to get work done, different things like this. Um, and so I would definitely think through what are the ways you can help yourself through the process when you feel reduced in your productivity. And so whether that be like you ask for some family help to help with your kids, or maybe you treat it kind of like you're having a few sick days and you save up some sick leave off work and you take some days off when you need to. But just be aware that at times withdrawal could affect your lifestyle and your productivity, and you may need to give yourself some margin and some way of like riding out some of the hardest parts of tapering. So some of my people are like, well, I can work during the week, but on the weekend I am good for nothing. Like my kids just have to go with with my husband, with their dad most of the weekend, and I just have to like rest and sleep. And so that would be like one example of like how tapering can come in and kind of give you a hit. It's kind of like can be like getting sick or getting the flu or something where you're just like, I am not 100%. I don't feel right. I feel real upset. I'm crying. I'm not able to focus and get all the things done on the list I normally get done. So just be aware, and maybe the hope is that we reduce the effect of those things by having a very slow hyperbolic taper so that it reduces the negative effects and negative impacts on your life. But it can still happen. Like you make a drop, you make a cut, and then you feel that effect for a while and you just don't feel totally yourself or stable. And sometimes that can linger for a little while, and then you stabilize and feel normal and feel more yourself or more stabilized. And so, just in that interim where you feel the effects, I think it can help to think through lifestyle and what are your margins and what are your supports for riding out the way that it does affect your productivity and your functioning. And so it may mean some takeout, it may mean some frozen pizza, whatever it is, but just so you're aware as you're coming into the process that it can take its toll, even though your body can come through each one of those waves and heal and restore, and you can more than abundantly be okay on the other side. It is can be very trying to go through the process. And so I just want to give you some of a picture of how to prepare and be equipped for getting through that process as smoothly and painlessly as possible, with as much support. And yeah, so thanks for tuning in. I will again include on this a link in the video description to tapering resources. I would just definitely encourage you to read up on all of those resources, to just have that in your back pocket for when you're curious or wondering things, that there are so many resources there and you aren't alone going through this process, and your body can so come through this and heal, and you be doing just really, really well and be free from medication. So just know you have my support and I'm here to encourage you through the process. And thanks for listening in today.